In the early 1960s, Britain was changing fast. Rock and roll, coffee houses, and the counterculture were exploding. Among the artists, musicians, and free thinkers, there lurked something much darker. They were scruffy drifters who dressed like bohemians, smoked endlessly, and talked about rejecting society. But behind their beatnik image, they were brutal criminals who shocked the nation. The press called them the Beatnik Killers, and their story is one of theft, violence, and murder. To understand the Beatnik Killers, we have to picture Britain in the early 1960s. Youth culture was rebelling against the stiff traditions of post-war society. The Beat generation, poets like Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, inspired a wave of young Brits to drop out, live freely, and reject the establishment. Coffee shops in Soho were full of so-called beatniks, people who dressed in black, strummed guitars, and quoted philosophy. But not everyone in the scene was just an eccentric poet. Some used the beatnik identity as a mask for crime. The Beatnik Killers weren't a single well-organized mob, but rather a loose group of criminals who drifted together in London. They lived on the fringes, squatters, addicts, con men. They embraced the image of the beatnik because it made them look like harmless drifters. Their crimes began small: shoplifting, pickpocketing, scams. But by 1960 to 61, they escalated. They robbed wealthy men who sought out beatnik women in Soho's nightclubs. They mugged strangers in dark alleys. And then they turned to violence. The first killing linked to the gang shocked London. A businessman was lured by a beatnik woman and then ambushed by men in her circle. He was beaten to death and robbed. Over the next months, more attacks followed, often in the same pattern: wealthy targets, ambushes, and brutal violence. The press began calling them the Beatnik Killers, painting a picture of bohemians gone savage. But the name was also misleading. Most real beatniks weren't violent. They were poets, musicians, and dreamers. The so-called killers simply exploited the image to disguise themselves. The Metropolitan Police soon launched a crackdown. Undercover officers infiltrated Soho clubs, watching the suspects closely. Newspapers splashed lurid headlines across the front pages, stirring moral panic about youth culture. By 1961, arrests began piling up. Several members of the gang were convicted of robbery, assault, and in some cases, murder. The courts came down hard, sending a message that the beatnik lifestyle was under suspicion. The story of the Beatnik Killers left a deep mark on Britain. It blurred the line between counterculture and crime, and fed into the fear many parents had about youth rebellion. In reality, the crimes were the work of a violent minority, not the whole scene. But the label stuck, and for years the word beatnik carried a darker meaning in Britain than in the United States. Looking back, the Beatnik Killers weren't just criminals. They were a reminder of how society often demonizes subcultures, and how the media can twist fear into a story that lingers for decades. So what do you think? Were the Beatnik Killers just opportunistic criminals hiding behind a counterculture mask? Or something more sinister? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories from history.